Fellow cardboarders, welcome back. Today we're finally gonna look at my Rocco and Secret Commander Norin deck, which y'all voted for, 34% to be exact, in our latest commander vote. And here's another installment of Think Outside the Deck box. So it's been a while with these kinds of videos and we're finally looking at the deck you've been voting for. So this is Rocco, Cabaretti Caterer, and for Naya and X, when he enters the battlefield he searches your library for any creature with mana value X or less and puts it onto the battlefield. And what we want to do with this deck always is for 4 mana tutor up Norin. That's a German version, der Vorsichtige, the Wary for 1, and he's a 2/1 human warrior. And whenever anyone casts any spell or attacks with any creatures, he's gonna exile himself and return back onto our battlefield by the end of any turn. So, and for this deck I actually got a very special Norin, which is this one, because this guy's gonna be exiled quite a lot and trigger a whole bunch of stuff, and this is a wonderful Naya Blink deck that we're building here, or that I've built here. So this is a secret lair version, and I didn't even know this existed up until like a month or 2 ago. And yeah, this was the secret card in, well, we'll show the name, which secret lair, and whenever he exiles himself I'm gonna flip him to the other side to note that he's gone. So we're gonna tutor up with Rocco Norin and then just put him to the side, because this guy is not gonna leave our side, and well, if he ever left our side we still have this one on the side. So now what does this deck want to do? We have a trigger pile, we have some card draw, ramp, and removal pile. We also have a tutor pile, a recursion, and a protection pile, as well as a land pile. And that's how we're gonna go through this deck. And I will let you know all my thoughts that went into building this deck. This is actually an idea of a friend. So thanks to the friend who's been punishing us and tormenting us with this deck, and I built my own version of it. And let me know in the comments which cards you would have included. We're gonna start with some wonderful life gain cards. So whenever any creatures enters the battlefield, we're gonna gain 1 life. And well, we have Norin entering and leaving, so we're gonna get quite a bunch of life points. And we have Soul Warden, which does the same. And the Essence Warden, I think it's called, does the same. All cost just 1 mana, wonderful. This one gives whenever any creature enters under my control a life. And what was the back of this? I barely played on the back. You gain 1 life whenever it leaves, any creature leaves the battlefield. So we're gonna get 1 life for Norin either way. With this one, Search Your Priest also punishes your opponent for having creatures enter their battlefield. We have the Distinguished Conjurer, which can also, well, actually save our Norin or get any other enter the battlefield creatures back for another trigger. We have the Mardu here, which also counts towards removal because it can exile creatures and gains us life. And then we have some Damage Dealer. We're playing some Universes Beyond cards just to give this deck a little more punch. We are playing the Arbazmir, which deals 1 damage whenever, well, Norin enters and gains 1 life, so that's fitting. We have Perforos, just the usual Norin inclusion, Perforos to deal 2 damage whenever he enters. We have Impact Tremors, also deals damage whenever he enters. Molten Gatekeeper, another new card that was created that also deals 1 damage whenever Norin enters and has Unearth. War Leader's Call also deals 1 damage whenever Norin enters, and all my creatures get +1/+1, so that's a nice bonus. And we have Aura Shards, which I could have also included into the removal pile, but I didn't, because this is my trigger pile, but I wasn't really that consistent, because yeah, sometimes I included them into another pile. Anyways, Aura Shards, great card. Whenever Norin enters, we destroy artifact or enchantment, and we're gonna bomb the whole board away, keep our stuff on our board, and the rest is not allowed to play any of these cards. This one always scries whenever Norin enters, and the second thing, I barely have cards that target, but if we find some, it's great. We can draw also cards. This card actually wins games and also has won me games, which is Confusion in the Ranks, which is a wonderful card in any Norin deck, because it will give them the Norin whenever he enters. We switch cards, we switch for another creature in this case. You get my Norin, I get your best creature, thank you for that. And whenever anyone casts a spell or attacks, Norin goes to exile and it enters under my control again, under its owner's control. So I get it again and I gift it to another player, stealing all their creatures, and yeah, that is quite something. We have another second Norin, if you want to call it that, for 4. Whenever a creature enters, he's gonna exile itself and enter at the end of turn again. So he's also gonna go into a loop of always exiling itself. Whenever Norin enters, he exiles himself, comes back, and also Norin comes back. He sees Norin coming back and goes again. So this card will not stick around for long, just leaving and entering and giving me more and more triggers. We're playing more Universes Beyond. We're playing Gandalf in here for double the triggers. Also beautiful, Panharmonicon. Also the same card, same effect. Triggers Norin's effects double. And then we have the Teleportation Circle, which simply blinks another creature. Not Norin usually, we could, but not useful. Rather any other creature that has a useful enter the battlefield effect. If you're wondering, by the way, what happens when Rocco gets removed, we have a tutor in our command zone, and we can tutor for any creatures you will start seeing or already saw, so that's also very useful. So throughout the game we can tutor up some other creatures. This one will draw us cards. This is the card draw pile. Whenever Norin enters, we draw a card, so every turn, and throughout a whole rotation we draw 3 cards, or 4 with our turn, so that's beautiful. Flumph, just some politics in this deck to get the deck started. It will block, and 2 players, 1 opponent, and I draw a card. We have Howling Mine, which will just start out the game faster and gives us more cards. With the Party Tree, which is a beautiful card that could also go into the trigger pile. Also the Takasia's Welcome could go in there. The Great Henge is it, and whenever Norin enters we draw a card. And also put a +1/+1 counter on it, which is useless because it will exile itself. And it's also ramp, so that's nice, gives us life. Guardian Project draws more cards, guess what? Humble Defector for more politics. We're gonna give it to an opponent who promises us to give him back after he uses it, so it always comes back to us, and we help the weakest player normally, or any player that likes our decks. Mentor of the Meek, we pay 1, draw a card. Scroll Rack I also put in here. We're gonna shuffle our library from time to time, so it's not exactly card draw because it doesn't draw you more than you had, but it fixes your hand, so I put it in here. And then we have the Sylvan Library, that also draws us more cards. Normally we go and we are greedy and draw 3 cards because we gain so many life points, which you saw in the first pile, so losing 8 life is not that much. Now next up we have the ramp pile. The Relic of Legends is quite a beautiful card because whenever Norin enters we can tap Norin before he exiles itself again and add 1 mana, and we can use it throughout a turn, and throughout a whole turn rotation we can use it multiple times, so that's nice. We're gonna draw a whole bunch of cards as you've seen in this pile, so a Thought Vessel is useful. Exploration, because we have a lot of cards in hand and some extra mana, obviously we want to use them. 3 Visits, just the standard useful cards that we play in Commander. For a forest card we tutor, for example the Jetmir Garden. As a Triumph we have the birds here, as well as Elvish Mystic, a Soaring, a Pilgrim, and a Utopia Sprawl. We're playing a couple of forests, so most of the time we're going to be able to equip it. And I just wanted to play cheap ramp, but obviously you could include any other that you wanted. Now, the removal pile, this counts as half a land, I'd say, because it could also, on the backside, enter as a land. We could also pay life, which we might do, to have it untapped. And on the other side, it just destroys an enchantment or artifact, which is a card that we could blink. For example, if we don't have the aura shards out, we might want to blink the Witch Enchanter. Swords to Plowshares, don't have to say anything about that. More removal, but also card draw. We could have also put it into this pile here. It's just politics and two people draw cards, me and opponent. Chaos Warp, don't have to say anything about that, I think. Wrath of God. Delayed Blast Fireball is something I want to tell you something about. This is a card that is beautiful and have put, I think, into all my red decks that can play it. Since you just foretell it, and then it's like a Cyclonic Rift for creatures. You deal 5 damage to each opponent and each of their creatures. So your creatures stay safe, and your Norin also stays safe. It exiles itself, whatever. All your creatures are safe, and you just bomb the board of your opponent. And most creatures, just look at the creatures that are normally played. 5 damage clears out most of the board, and the creatures we really want to get rid of, we exile, obviously. So, or we take control over, right, with the confusion in the ranks. So keep that in mind. That is a beautiful board wipe, and I challenge you to test it out and let me know how you like it. Reclamation Sage, another card that we might want to blink. Path to Exile, normal inclusion. We have Frozen Grip, also normal inclusion. All of these you could also switch out with any creatures that also enter the battlefield to blink them more, but yeah, I wanted to have some instant sorceries in here, so that's why I have that. Vandal Blast, just to get rid of all the artifacts. Not much to say here. Now, we have a whole bunch of cards to tutor. So for example, if our Rocco gets countered, we could also use Survival of the Fittest to fetch our Norin, or the best creature that is in our deck at any time for just 1 green. More people should play this card if you don't own it. Get at least 1. I have a gold board, I actually have 4 gold board ones, and no one minds. Like, obviously it's not legal, but I'm not playing any competitive or like championships or anything. So I'm just playing casual kitchen table Magic and no one minds. So get yourself a gold border one and just call it a day. Then, or maybe ask your playgroup if it's fine. You have the Moonblessed Cleric, which can also tutor up for any enchantment. You saw already some very useful enchantments, and this one can get the best one out of our deck and put it on top. We have the Imperial Recruiter, which gets a little creature out of our deck. Name it any one you find useful, for example, an Eternal Witness or the Academy Rector, why not? Whenever he dies, we can exile him and tutor up any enchantment and put it onto the battlefield, so that is quite strong. Maybe some of the card drawers, why not, shall we? We have the Court of Calling to just simply put a creature onto the battlefield, which is redundant to our commander, obviously, but we could also just tap some creatures and not pay any mana to cast the Court of Calling. Idyllic Tutor for another enchantment tutor, and we're playing the Wirewood Symbiote to return an elf to my hand and untap a creature. Now, the important thing here is the elf thing. Rocco is actually an elf, and with this we can actually return our Rocco back to our hand. So this one by itself is not a tutor. Obviously it untaps a creature, which can be useful at times, but we can actually get back Rocco and tutor up for another creature that we want without having to pay any additional commander casting costs. So keep that in mind, and that is quite an important card in this deck, just to be able to be more flexible and actually tutor up any creature that we want whenever we want, just for 3 and X. Now we're almost through the deck. We have the recursion pile because many of our cards are quite dangerous, especially like cards of like the confusion in the ranks, or actually Norin. If people are able to remove Norin, hopefully not exile him, we have some protection cards which I'm going to show you in a sec. The Eternal Witness will get those cards back, and maybe even Norin if someone was able to maybe destroy him with a ability that could destroy him rather than casting a spell. So yeah, this will get our best card in our graveyard. Sun Titan can also reanimate Norin, or whichever cheap card was destroyed. You should try out Argivian Find, which is a card that is, in my eyes, unknown to many players since it's so old from Weatherlight. For 1, you get the best artifact or enchantment card out of your graveyard back to your hand for just 1 mana and at instant speed. So yeah, think of any artifacts, enchantments in your artifact enchantments deck that play white, and then you would agree it's the best card from your graveyard at any times. And most of the time, the good cards are destroyed, obviously. Reclamation also does the same, like Sun Titan has also flashback, and the recovery, which can also play it as a land on the back, but most of the times it will be another Eternal Witness. Now, the protection pile, and I hope you enjoyed this video, do help the channel out to get to 1,000 subscribers. If you got so far, maybe you want to do that now. And we have the eerie interlude here from a promo where it was with my wife. This was her first pre-release, I think, that she played, and I got this one out of the booster. And anyways, this one exiles all my creatures, or well, any number of creatures that I want, and can actually save some important creatures from my board. If someone plays a board wipe, for example, well, my creatures stay on the board. I'm not playing Teferi's Protection, which you could also play if you want to. I just found it to be too prominent in the game currently, so I didn't want to include it. And also it has a blink effect which fits more to the deck. The Ghostway was the card that exiles all the creatures and puts them back to the battlefield on your side, so it's a little worse than this one. Both of them are instants and cost 3, but this one exiles all, this one only exiles any number you want. We have the Displacer, which is another important card in this deck, because it can, at instant speed at any time, for 2 and a colorless, actually save our Norin if we want to, or blink any creature that we want. And we have several colorless sources if we want to. I think I counted like 8 or so, including the ramp cards as well and the lands. So we have several, and it's important to just at least have one. If we have like 2 or 3 out, it's great, we can pump some mana into this one, but just keep in mind this one will at some point also save our Norin. The Guardian of Faith, also a great card that saves your board from a board wipe or whatever you want to use it on. Mother of Runes, another card that saves our Norin, because Norin is our secret commander that we want to play with and we don't want it removed. And we have the Muse, the Windburn Muse here, which is like a ghostly prison and just protects us. And then we have lastly the Maze of Ith, which is not a land because it doesn't produce mana, but it actually takes out a creature which is attacking you and prevents the damage that it would deal. Now lastly, the land pile, let's go quickly through that. We're playing the Triome as well as some Shocklands here. I don't have all these Shocklands, I think Sacred Foundry I have it in another deck. We have Cinderglade in here for more fetches. By the way, fetches we're playing like 5, wow. We're playing the Rootbound Crag, as well as some pass, I don't know what the translation is, Overgrown Farm, which does the same and gives us different kinds of mana. We're playing the I Have Opponents lands here, which check if I have opponents and gives us more mana. Then we're playing the colorless pips, which I told you about for the Displacer here, which is the Battlefield Forge, the Brushland, and the Forest. So it is important that you include some kind of these lands, that you have the colorless pips that you have to pay here, which is why these filter lands are in here as well. Then we have some flip lands that get you mana from either side. We have a City of Brass just for color fixing, and we don't mind the 1 damage dealt to us because we get so many life points. Command Tower, normal inclusion, Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth, just to have all the forests, which is why the Utopia Sprawl is also in here. We're playing 2 more standard forest and 3 plains, 3 mountains, and now I want you to have a beautiful day. Let me know what you would include in this deck. Click those 2 buttons to support the channel, and I'll see you in the comments. Bye bye.